The hall of the alien capital was full of shining light. Tall pillars rose like silver trees and banners of power hung across the walls. Thousands of alien leaders filled the seats, each one dressed in strong armor or glowing robes. They were waiting for the governor, the most powerful woman of their empire. She ruled many worlds with her voice alone, and no one dared to stand against her commands. When the great doors opened, silence covered the crowd. The governor walked slowly, her steps proud, her face cold as stone. Her eyes were sharp, her robe heavy with metals and jewels. Every leader in the hall bowed their heads, afraid to look directly at her. But behind her there was only emptiness. Normally a ruler would present their child, the heir of the family, but the governor never showed hers. Whispers moved through the hall like snakes. Some said her daughter was cursed. Some said she was too weak. Others said there was no daughter at all, only a lie to protect her pride. The governor heard the whispers every year, but she never answered them. Her face never moved, her voice never shook. She was the perfect mask of alien strength, but tonight, a pair of human eyes noticed something different. Among the many guests from other planets was a human worker. Not a soldier, not a leader, just an ordinary man. He had been sent as part of a cultural exchange. Nothing more. While others kept their eyes low, he let his eyes wander, curious about everything, and there, high above in a dark balcony, he saw a small shadow. It was a girl, thin and fragile, hiding in the dark. Her hands shook as she held the railing. Her body weak, but her eyes were wide, full of longing. She wanted to step forward into the light, but fear locked her feet in place. The human felt something sharp in his chest. A pain he could not explain. He looked around, but no one else noticed her. The aliens ignored the balcony, as if it was empty. The governor began her speech, her voice deep and strong. She spoke about honor, about perfection, about the empire's great future. Every word echoed across the walls like iron. But the human's attention was on the balcony. The girl leaned forward, trying to move. Her leg shook. Her arm trembled. She stepped out a little, her foot sliding against the floor. But then her body failed. She fell forward. Almost hitting the railing, her hand caught the edge, and she pulled herself back. The human gasped softly. No one else looked. No one else cared. To them, weakness was invisible, but to him, it was the most powerful thing in the hall. He wanted to move, to run to her, but he could not. Guards stood everywhere, eyes like fire, hands on their weapons. He stayed quiet, but his heart burned. The governor finished her speech. The crowd cheered, their voices loud, but the sound could not cover the silence of the balcony. The girl had disappeared into the dark again. No one noticed, no one spoke. But the human could not forget later as the hall emptied. He saw the governor walking away with her guards. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold as if they carried a heavy weight. He wondered if she knew her daughter had been there. He wondered if she cared. The human had only been in the alien empire for a short time, but he already knew their laws. Perfection was everything. Strength was worshipped, weakness was shame. Maybe that was why the governor hid her daughter. Maybe that was why the girl had never been seen in public. But the human thought of Earth. He thought of his own world, where even the weak had a place, where even broken wings could still try to fly. The picture of the girl trembling at the balcony stayed in his mind. Her eyes were not empty. They were full of fire, a fire locked in chains, and he knew somehow that he could not look away. That night he could not sleep. He kept seeing her small hands gripping the railing, her body fighting to stand. He felt anger rise in him, anger at the silence of the hall. How could thousands of voices cheer for power, yet none speak for her? The next day he made a choice. It was a dangerous choice, but he did not care. He would find the unseen daughter. He would speak to her. He would not laugh at her weakness. He would not turn away, because in her eyes, he had seen something the empire had forgotten. Hope, and hope he knew was stronger than fear. The palace garden was silent under the twin moons. Silver light fell on the flowers that glowed softly in the night. The human walked slowly, pretending to admire the plants, but his eyes searched the shadows. He had asked a servant about the governor's hidden daughter, but the servant turned pale and warned him, "Do not speak of her." Stranger, yet the human could not let it go. His heart remembered the trembling figure on the balcony, the way she tried to step into the light, the way she nearly fell. That image burned in him like fire. As he turned a corner he stopped. There she was, sitting alone beside a fountain, her thin arms hugging her knees, her face half hidden by silver hair. For a moment he froze, afraid to frighten her. But then, as if sensing him, she lifted her head. Her eyes widened when she saw him, as if no one had dared to come close before. The human gave a small smile, warm and gentle. The girl blinked, confused, as if she had never seen such a smile in her life. "Hello," he said softly, his voice careful. The girl's lips moved, but no sound came out. She looked away, ashamed, as if her silence was a crime. The human did not step closer. He simply sat on a stone bench across from her. "Leaving space, you don't have to speak," he said. "I only wanted to see if you're all right." For a long time, she did not move, but slowly, she turned her face back toward him. Her eyes shone in the moonlight, filled with doubt and fear, but also something else, curiosity. "Do you know?" the human whispered. "You were the bravest one in that hall." Her eyes grew wide again, as if his words were impossible. The bravest one? No one had ever said that to her. She shook her head quickly, her hands gripping her knees tighter. But the human smiled again, that same gentle smile. "You tried to step forward even when your body was weak," he said. "That is courage." The girl's lips trembled, and a tiny sound escaped, a broken whisper. "See? Courage." Her voice was fragile like glass, but it was there. The human's smile grew brighter. "Yes, courage." The word seemed strange to her, but she repeated it softly. Courage. Tears filled her eyes because no one in her empire had ever given her that word. Only words like weak, broken shame. The human leaned forward a little, lowering his voice. "Would you like me to show you something?" he asked. The girl tilted her head, uncertain. He stood and took a step into the open space of the garden. Then he began to move slowly, carefully. He raised his arms, bent his knees, and took a step to the side. It was not a march, not a soldier's drill, not alien combat training. It was something different, something soft, something alive. It was dance. The girl stared with wide eyes, her mouth slightly open. She had never seen such movement before. Her people only moved for war or for ceremony, every step heavy with pride and rules. But this was free, playful, almost like the wind itself. The human spun once, clapped his hands, and stamped his foot in rhythm. The sound echoed gently across the garden. The girl gasped softly, her heart racing. She did not understand, but something inside her stirred. He looked at her and smiled again. "You can try too, if you want." She shook her head quickly, fear filling her eyes, but he raised a hand gently. "No pressure," he said, "just a step, nothing more." He showed again, just one simple step. Side to side, the girl's hand shook, her body tense. But then she pressed her small feet to the ground and moved slightly. Her leg trembled. Her body almost fell, but she caught herself. The human clapped softly. "Perfect," he said. The girl looked at him in shock, her face burning. Perfect? She had never been called perfect. She tried again, her steps shaky. She stumbled. But this time she smiled faintly. It was the first true smile she had given in years. The human's heart warmed. In that moment he knew. This girl was more powerful than the Empire believed. From the shadows of the garden wall, unseen eyes watched. The governor's spies had followed, their faces cold as they saw the human with her daughter. They hurried away to report. The girl did not notice. For the first time in her life, she was not invisible. For the first time, someone looked at her not with shame but with light. The human laughed softly. "You see? You can move, you can dance, even if it is small," the girl whispered back. "Dance," testing the strange word on her tongue. "Yes," he said, nodding. "Dance." Her hands rose slowly, awkwardly as she copied him. The fountain sparkled, the moonlight fell, and in that quiet garden, the unseen daughter took her first step toward freedom. And for the first time in her short, hidden life, she felt alive. The night was quiet again, but the human's heart was not. He walked quickly to the hidden garden, unsure if the governor's daughter would come. He feared the guards might lock her away after the spies had seen them. But when he turned the corner, there she was, waiting by the fountain, her eyes shining in the moonlight. She looked nervous, her hands twisting together. But when she saw him, she did not run. Instead, she whispered one word, soft but clear. "Dance." The human smiled. "Yes, dance," he said gently. He stepped into the open space, lifted his arms, and began to move again. Simple steps side to side, a rhythm easy to follow. The girl watched closely, her eyes following every motion. Her body trembled as she tried to copy him. Her foot dragging on the stone, she nearly fell. But the human clapped softly. "Good," he said. "That is courage." The word made her chest rise as if it gave her strength. She tried again, her steps uneven. Her arms stiff, but she moved. She stumbled and caught herself. Her breath fast, the human encouraged her. Never mocking, never frowning, always smiling for the first time in her life. Effort was praised, not punished. The girl's lips curved into a small, uncertain smile. The human laughed softly. A warm sound in the cold alien night. Do not fear mistakes, he said. They are part of the dance, the girl repeated softly. Part of the dance. Her people had never spoken such words. Mistakes were shame, weakness was crime. But this human spoke as if weakness was not an end, but a beginning. She tried again, her arms loosening a little, her feet sliding awkwardly but bravely. The human clapped in rhythm, giving her a beat to follow. 1, 2, step, 1, 2, step. The garden filled with the sound. Gentle and alive. The girl moved to it, slowly finding her balance. She laughed suddenly, a sharp, broken laugh. Surprised by her own movement, the human's eyes softened. See, you can laugh, he said. And you can dance. From the high wall, a shadow moved, a spy once more. He saw the daughter of the governor stumbling, laughing, trying, and he hurried away with his report. But the girl did not see. She was too busy trying to lift her foot higher. She fell this time, her knees hitting the stone. The human rushed forward, but she raised her hand, shaking her head. No, she whispered. Stand. Her hands pressed against the ground, her weak legs shook, but she pushed herself up. Her chest heaved. Sweat on her forehead, but she stood. The human's eyes filled with pride. Yes, he whispered. That is strength. She looked at him confused. Strength? He nodded. Not in never falling, but in standing again. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling as if the words broke chains inside her. She whispered them back. Strength is standing again. The human nodded firmly. Yes, that night. The girl walked 3 steps without falling. They were crooked and clumsy, but they were hers. She ended by lifting her arms in the air, imitating the human's final pose. She almost fell again, but instead of fear, she laughed. The sound was soft, fragile, but it carried into the night like music. The human clapped, bowing to her. You danced, he said proudly, her eyes filled with tears. But this time they were not from pain. They were from joy. Dance, she whispered again, as if the word was a treasure. From the shadows of the palace, another pair of eyes watched. The governor herself, hidden behind a pillar. Her heart squeezed painfully in her chest. She had hidden her daughter for years. Ashamed of her weakness, but now, under the moonlight, she saw her child smiling, moving, standing. Tears threatened her eyes, but she forced them back. She could not show weakness, not even alone. She turned and left before the human noticed her. But her heart carried the image with her. The image of her daughter's first dance. Back in the garden, the girl's legs finally gave way. She sank to the ground, exhausted but happy. The human sat beside her, not as a teacher, not as a savior, but as a friend. You are not broken, he said softly. You are learning. Her eyes widened at the words, she whispered them back. Not broken. Learning. The stars shone above them. The fountain whispered. The night wrapped them in silver light. And in that quiet moment, the unseen daughter of the most feared governor in the empire took her first steps toward freedom. And with each trembling step, she was no longer unseen. The garden was quiet. The air heavy with moonlight, the human clapped softly, guiding the governor's daughter step by step. Her weak legs trembled, but her eyes burned with life. She stumbled, fell, rose again, each movement stronger than the last. Then the sound of heavy boots broke the peace. The human froze, the girl gasped, her body stiff. From the shadows, armored guards stepped into the garden. Their weapons glowing, behind them came a tall figure, wrapped in a robe of black and silver. Her eyes were sharp, colder than stone. Her face set like iron. It was the governor. The girl's knees gave way, and she fell, bowing her head. Her whole body shook. Her hands pressed to the ground. The human stepped forward, blocking the guards. His heart pounded, but he stood firm. The governor's voice cut the air like a blade. What are you doing with my daughter? The girl trembled harder, her breath shallow. The human opened his mouth, his voice steady. I was teaching her, he said. She wanted to learn. The governor's eyes narrowed. Her hand rising. Teaching her weakness? Teaching her shame? She is a disgrace to my name. The words struck the girl like knives, her tears falling, but the human shook his head, his voice firm. No, he said. She is not shame. She is not weak. The guards moved closer, their weapons humming, but the human did not step back. She stood, he said loudly, his eyes locked on the governor. She danced, The governor's lips tightened, her eyes flashing with fury. "She is broken," she hissed. "She will never stand among our people." The girl cried out suddenly, her voice cracking but strong. "No," she shouted, her first true cry against her mother's power. The garden froze, the guard stiffened. The governor's eyes widened slightly. As if struck, her daughter had spoken against her. The girl's voice trembled, but she forced the words out. "I can stand," she whispered. "I can dance." She gripped the fountain and pulled herself up. Her legs shaking, her tears streamed down, but she lifted her head high. The human's chest swelled with pride. The governor's face hardened again. "Enough!" she snapped. "Guards! Take him away." The human raised his arms, ready to resist, but before the guards moved, the girl stepped forward. Her steps were weak, her body unsteady, but she placed herself between the human and the guards. "Do not touch him," she cried, her voice breaking. The guards looked at the governor. Uncertain, the human whispered gently, "It's all right." But the girl shook her head. Her eyes were fierce now, glowing through tears. For the first time in her life, she was not hiding. For the first time, she was protecting. The governor's chest tightened, a storm battling inside her. She had hidden her daughter for years. Ashamed of her weakness, she had told herself it was mercy, to keep her safe from cruelty. But now her child stood trembling, defying her, shouting, and all of it because of this human. Her eyes locked on him, her voice cold as death. "Why?" she demanded. "Why do you care for her?" "She is not your kind." The human's voice was steady. "Calm but burning, because she deserves to live," he said. Not as a shadow, not as a secret, but as herself. The words struck harder than any weapon. The governor's heart twisted, though her face stayed hard. Her daughter's small hand reached out. Gripping the human's arm, her voice broke into sobs. But the words came, "Please, do not take him." The silence that followed was heavier than stone. The guards waited, their eyes flicking between their ruler and the trembling child. The governor's breath slowed, her eyes flickering with a pain she would not name. She lowered her hand, signaling the guards to stop. "Leave us," she commanded, her voice rough. The guards bowed and withdrew, their heavy boots fading into the dark. Now only the three of them remained. The girl clinging to the human, the governor staring at them both. The human did not move, waiting. The governor turned her gaze on her daughter, her voice sharp but quieter. "You think this is strength?" she asked. The girl lifted her head, her tears shining. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling but true. The governor looked at her long, her own breath shaking, though she fought to hide it. For a brief moment her mask cracked. Her eyes glistened as if a tear threatened, but then she turned sharply away, her robe flowing like a storm. "Go," she said coldly. "Both of you." The human guided the girl back to the fountain, his hand steady on her shoulder. The governor walked into the shadows, her heart heavy, her face unreadable, but her daughter's cry echoed in her ears, "I can stand, I can dance," and though she tried to bury it, her soul trembled with the weight of those words. The palace hall stood empty under golden lights. During the day it was filled with powerful voices, speeches, and endless pride. But now at night, only silence ruled the great space. The human stepped quietly onto the polished floor, his footsteps echoing like whispers. Behind him came the governor's daughter, her thin frame moving slowly, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. She had never entered this hall before, never dared. To her, it was a place for perfection, a place where weakness was death. But tonight, it would be something else. "Do not be afraid," the human said softly. "This is only a room, nothing more." The girl's trembling hands brushed against the air as if she could feel the weight of the thousands of eyes that once stared here. She whispered, "This is where they laugh at me." The human shook his head, smiling gently. "No," he said. "This is where they will see you." Her breath caught, her chest tightening. He clapped his hands once, the sound echoing through the hall like a heartbeat. "Listen," he said. "The hall answers you. It wants to hear your steps." The girl tilted her head, her fear battling with curiosity. The human began to move, slow steps across the great floor, his arms spreading wide as if to claim the whole hall. The sound of his shoes echoed, filling the emptiness with life. The girl gasped softly, watching the rhythm flow from his body. "You try," he said gently. "Only one step." Her legs shook, but she placed her foot forward. The sound was small, but it echoed too. Her eyes widened, as if the hall itself had listened to her. She took another step, the sound louder this time. The human clapped in rhythm, guiding her. Step, step, pause, step, step, pause. Her body moved awkwardly, but each echo carried strength. The girl's lips parted in a shaky laugh, surprised at the sound of her own steps filling the mighty hall. For once, she was not silent, not hidden, not unseen. The human's voice rose, steady and kind. See? You command the hall, not the other way around. She tried lifting her arms like his, swaying slightly. Her balance faltered, but she caught herself. The echo of her stumble rang out, but instead of shame, she smiled. The human clapped louder, spinning slowly, his rhythm alive. The girl's laughter grew, fragile but real, and for the first time, the great hall was not a prison but a stage. From the shadows high above, the governor stood hidden, her eyes locked on her daughter, her chest heavy with unspoken feelings. She had sworn never to let her child be mocked, never to let her be seen as broken. But what she saw now was different. The girl was not broken, she was glowing. Her small figure moved across the hall like a fragile flame refusing to die. The governor's throat tightened, her eyes burning with tears she forced back. But still she watched, unable to leave. The girl raised her arms again, trying to copy the human's spin. She stumbled, nearly falling, but the human caught her hand before she hit the floor. Again, he said, smiling. One more time. Her fingers squeezed his, her lips trembling into a smile. Together they moved, slow at first, then faster. Her laughter echoed louder, her feet finding rhythm in the emptiness. Step, step, spin, step, step, laugh. The hall came alive with their movement. And though it was clumsy, it was beautiful. The governor's heart cracked open in the shadows, a single tear sliding down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. She could not let anyone see, not even herself. The human lifted the girl's hand high, bowing before her, as if she were the star of a grand performance. She looked around the hall, breathing hard, sweat on her forehead. Her chest heaved, her legs shook, but her eyes shone with pride. I danced, she whispered, as if the words were a miracle. The human bowed deeper. Yes, he said. You danced. The girl's tears fell, but they were not of pain, they were of joy. The echo of her laugh filled the hall once more, and in the shadows the governor finally turned away, her steps heavy, her heart torn between fury and love. She whispered to herself, What have you done, human? But she could not erase the image in her mind, her daughter, smiling, dancing, alive. The empire's greatest day had arrived. The grand celebration filled the capital with banners of fire and light. Drums thundered in the streets, and alien leaders from 100 worlds gathered in the great hall. This was the day when rulers showed their heirs, the future strength of their bloodlines. Every year the governor had walked alone, her face colder than stone. Every year, whispers followed her, asking why no heir stood beside her. But this year something would be different. The human stood near the edge of the hall, hidden among minor guests, his heart pounding. He had trained the governor's daughter in secret nights, teaching her courage, teaching her rhythm, teaching her that she was more than her weakness. Now he feared what would happen when the whole empire saw her. The drums stopped, silence falling heavy over the hall. The massive doors opened, and the governor entered, her robe shining with silver light. Her step strong, gasps rose when the crowd saw a second figure walking beside her, thin, trembling, but standing tall. It was the daughter. The whispers became louder, echoing through the hall like a storm. The broken child, someone hissed. She cannot even walk, another sneered. She is a shame to the governor, others muttered. The governor's face was carved from stone, showing no emotion. But inside her chest her heart pounded. Her daughter's hand trembled as she gripped her robe. But she did not fall. The human caught her eye from the shadows and gave a small nod, his smile steady. The girl's breathing slowed, courage sparking in her chest. The governor stepped forward, her voice deep and commanding. Behold, she said. My daughter. The hall erupted in shock, gasps and laughter, disbelief and anger. Some leaders bowed their heads in scorn, others whispered of weakness. The governor raised her hand, and the hall fell silent again. Music began, slow and steady. The girl stepped forward alone, her legs trembling. The crowd leaned forward, ready for her to collapse, ready to mock, but she did not fall. She lifted her arms and took her first step. The sound echoed in the mighty hall. Her foot dragged, her movement awkward, but she moved. The whispers grew sharper. She stumbles, they said. She is a disgrace. But then she stepped again and again. Her rhythm grew, guided by memory, guided by the humans' teaching. Step, step, pause, step, step, pause. The music swelled. Her arms lifted, her body swayed. She spun clumsily, nearly falling, but caught herself. A small laugh escaped her lips, bright and alive. The crowd went silent, confused. They had never seen weakness turned into joy. They had never seen brokenness become beauty. The girl moved again, her steps smoother now. She stumbled once more, but instead of shame, she smiled and kept going. The human clapped softly from the shadows, giving her courage. Her eyes found his, and her body followed the rhythm of his invisible beat. Step, spin, laugh, step, spin, stand. The hall, once cruel, once filled with judgment, was now filled with silence. The leaders watched, their mouths tight, their eyes unable to look away. The governor's chest tightened, her mask beginning to crack. She saw her daughter not as weak, not as broken, but as alive. And she felt a tear burning behind her eyes. The music rose to its peak. The girl lifted her arms high, spinning one last time, her steps shaking, her breath heavy. She stumbled at the end, her foot catching on the polished floor. The crowd gasped, waiting for her to crash, waiting for humiliation, but before she fell, a hand reached out. The human, standing at the edge, caught her, steadying her before all the empire. The girl's small hand clung to his, her eyes bright with fire. Together they stood in the center of the hall, and in that silence the governor felt her heart break open, her face, always stone, twisted with emotion, and before she could stop it, a tear slid down her cheek. The crowd gasped again, louder than before. The governor, the most feared leader of the empire, was crying in public. Her daughter looked at her, her lips trembling into a smile. The human bowed slightly, guiding the girl to stand tall before them all. The hall, the empire, the galaxy itself had changed in that single moment. The hall was frozen in silence. The governor's tear had fallen, and no one knew how to breathe for centuries. Alien rulers had never shown weakness, never shown fear, never shown love, but tonight, before thousands of eyes, the most feared leader of the empire wept. Her daughter, fragile yet shining, stood at the center of the hall, her hand in the human's. Her legs shook, her body trembled, but her eyes burned brighter than any torch. The human stood steady beside her, calm and unafraid. The crowd of alien leaders stared, their whispers dying in their throats. They had come to mock, to laugh, to see a broken child fall. Instead, they saw something they could not understand. They saw courage, they saw hope. They saw a governor's heart breaking open. The governor stepped forward, her robe dragging like a heavy chain. Her eyes locked on her daughter, her voice rough. Why? She whispered, though all could hear. Why do you stand? Why do you show yourself before them? Her daughter lifted her chin, her tears shining, her voice trembling but true. Because I am not broken, she said. I can stand, I can dance, I can live. The words struck the hall like thunder. Gasps echoed. Some leaders shook their heads in disbelief. Others lowered their eyes in shame. The governor's lips trembled, her mask breaking further. She looked at the human, her eyes sharp with both anger and gratitude. You did this, she whispered. You changed her. The human's voice was steady, filled with quiet fire. No, he said, she changed herself. I only showed her she could. The girl's weak fingers clutched the human's hand tighter, her small body leaning on him. Her voice rose again, stronger. I am not your shadow, I am not your shame. I am your daughter. The governor's chest shook, her heart torn open by words she had never expected. She had hidden her child for years, believing it was mercy, believing it was protection, but all along it had been chains. The girl stepped forward, though her legs shook, and raised her arms again. She spun slowly, stumbling, but did not fall. Her laugh rang out. Bright and fearless, the crowd watched in silence. No longer mocking, no longer sneering. They saw a child who should have been silent forever, yet now danced before them all. The governor could not hold back any more. She stepped forward and dropped to her knees before her daughter. Gasps filled the hall. The most powerful leader in the empire knelt before the weakest child. Her arms wrapped around her daughter, pulling her close. Tears streamed down her face, unstoppable. "I was wrong," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Forgive me." The girl's small arms wrapped around her mother. Trembling but full of love, the human watched. His heart heavy and warm, for this moment was not his. It belonged to them. The governor rose slowly. Her daughter still in her arms, she turned to face the hall. Her face wet with tears, her voice steady again. "This is my daughter," she declared. "She is not broken. She is my strength." The hall erupted in stunned silence. No leader spoke, no leader laughed. They bowed their heads, for the first time not out of fear but out of respect. The governor's eyes found the human again, and for once her gaze softened. "You have given her life," she said, her voice low. "And you have given me back my heart." The human bowed slightly. His words simple. "She only needed to be seen," he said. "Humans believe even broken wings can fly." The governor held her daughter close, her tears falling freely. The empire would never be the same. For in one night weakness had turned into power, shame had turned into pride, and all of it because of a human who dared to smile. As the music swelled again, the girl stepped forward one last time. She raised her arms, spun clumsily, laughed, and stood tall. The hall erupted in thunderous applause, not forced, not cold, but real. The governor wept openly, not caring who saw. And for the first time in her reign, the people did not fear her tears. They honored them. The human smiled softly. Knowing the truth, it was not weapons that made humans dangerous. It was not armies, not machines, not power. It was their heart, the ability to see light where others saw darkness, the ability to call hope out of despair. And in that great hall, on that great day, the empire learned that lesson. A human had changed them all. Not with war, but with a smile.